the county forces, longtime employee of the village, and he was a World War II and a Korean vet. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I'll need a motion to modify the agenda to move up the public information meeting on Church Park to the first item.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll open the public informational hearing on the Church Park. So, it's now open. Anybody want to comment, say anything? If you are, please state your name first, so make them get it for the minutes.
Don't all jump up at once.
Okay.
Questions about the agreement, if no one has any questions.
Oh, no, if nobody in the audience, yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at the draft. I think this really is a question for you to explain something to me, okay? If we go to page 2, under conditions of premises and repairs. Sorry. Page 2 of the draft agreement, under conditions of premises and repairs. My question is, the last sentence on that page. All erections, alterations, additions, and improvements, whether temporary or permanent in character, which may be made upon the premises, either by the landlord or the tenant, except furniture or movable trade fixtures installed at the expense of the tenant, shall be the property of the landlord and shall remain upon and be surrendered with the premises as a part thereof at the termination of this lease without compensation to the tenant. My question is, what possibly, I know the village wouldn't be planning any erections on that site, but what erections could we be, what is that covered with this?
Well, I mean, let me say this, typically, terms of the lease are not negotiated in a forum such as this. I mean, this is a boilerplate type of thing. My understanding that tonight's public informational meeting was being convened to discuss whether or not, the board decided to do this, but whether or not it was in the interest of the village to enter into a long-term lease agreement with the Presbyterian Church. We presently have the ability to use that portion of what we call Church Park pursuant to permission given by the Presbyterian Church back in 1886. I'm sorry, you have me in mid-butterscotch here. And since 1886, we've continued with some modifications. We've asked for different things at different times. And we've had a relationship that I think has worked in a mutually beneficial way for all those years. The church came to us a number of years ago and said we'd like to modify that into a long-term lease agreement. And we've had some negotiations back and forth over a period of years. And I think the big picture issue that my understanding the board wanted to convene this public informational meeting regarding was whether or not it was appropriate to enter into a long-term lease agreement versus remaining, if the village board said no, we'd rather remain in the situation we have now where we operate pursuant to permission granted by the church, and the church would have to decide, well, perhaps we want to look into revoking that permission. I'm not saying, I'm just trying to frame the issue as I understand it that's before us tonight, and that's here to get the public input regarding, as opposed to, while I'm certainly happy to discuss specific terms of the lease, I mean, you know, these things can all be discussed and modified. That's a boilerplate provision which I'm sure could be modified, assuming that we resolve the big picture issue, then we want to enter into a long-term lease agreement with the church.
I understand. That being said, I raised the question because I think part of the concern, on my part certainly, and on the part of others who just, raised the issue with me, is the benefit, whether this is an emotional benefit to the church or there is a long-term benefit that the church is looking to protect, or whatever the deal is. I'm trying to figure out why, after all these years of functioning in this fashion, where I refer to it as the village green up until the rounded sidewalk. And I appreciate the fact that the church disagrees with that position. My concern in trying to evaluate how to proceed and how to vote on this is to try to understand if I vote in favor of agreeing to this 30-year lease with the church, according to these conditions, or whether I say, this has been brought up by several administrations, every administration I know of since I've had anything to do here, and it has not been altered. And therefore, I'm trying to understand the parameters of the agreement, which is why I asked the question.
Okay, well, I think that the parameters or the specific conditions become easier to resolve if we resolve the big picture item. Do we wish to enter into a lease agreement, or do we prefer, does the village board prefer, to keep going along, if you will, as we have gone along? And perhaps I don't mean to put the reverend or his...
Certainly.
Okay. David Kingsley, pastor of the First Presbyterian Church. It isn't going to continue. Okay? The insurance company said, you have to have a lease for that property. And that's that. We have to have a lease for it in order for them to insure our property. And, it is, I think you pointed out correctly, Dave, the last time, in pointing out this is a change in form, not content. Okay, the village is going to get to do the same things they've always done there, okay, except there's simply going to be a written agreement and a resolution of property bounds.
Mr. Greenwald.
Yes, Gary Greenwald, attorney for the church. I don't say this in any way disrespectfully, and I want to make it clear, it's not meant that way. But I'm not quite understanding, this is a public hearing, public informational hearing.
Correct.
Okay? It's not for the board to debate among themselves, which you're free to do, or meet with your village attorney and say, I don't like this clause, I like this clause. I think the questioning emanating from the village board is out of place. With no disrespect meant to the village trustee. This is a public hearing for you to get information back. Now, these questions are valid questions, and I will make that clear. Just talking about the forum. You can meet in your executive session, I don't like this, I don't like that. Give directions to Mr. Diamond, who's more than capable of attorney. He'll meet with the other side, negotiate, whatever you say to negotiate, and we'll resolve it. And I don't mean that, and I want to make it clear, this is not at all an attack on the good trustee. The issue that I understand is, we're here for a public hearing for you to hear information about what folks want to think about this lease. You'll take that back, you'll vote, not vote, negotiate, not negotiate, whatever you choose to do, which is within your province. But the thing that I think is not in your province is that this is a hearing here from the public, not for, and I think that's what Mr. Donovan was saying in a different way, and maybe I'm not trying to be less than polite as he was in how he said it, but this is not the purpose of a village trustee saying, I don't understand this, or how do we know? Actually, you should be doing that in a private executive session. Mr. Donovan is more than capable of giving you appropriate answers, and all I'm asking is that the hearing continue. If anybody wants to speak, you'll run the meeting and do whatever you got to do. No one wants to speak, the hearing is over, and you folks take in any of the legal issues within the lease that you want to ask questions about, because candidly, these type of questions should be asked privately to Mr. Donovan, and he'll give you the private answer, because it may be something you want to negotiate that you don't want the rest of the world to hear, which is the right way to do it.